Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, we've had a lot of discussions about age verification and age attestation and things like that. And obviously the first place, at least the first large global place that these restrictions rolled out was Brazil. And so I knew very little about the Brazilian Act, but I did want to go ahead and look at this. Now, I had mentioned in my Manjaro video the other day that the GNOME version has Big Linux parental controls, and I said maybe I'll look at the GNOME version of that soon to have a look at those. But I figured, why do that when I could just go right to the source? Big Linux, which is a Linux distribution based out of Brazil, and based on the law there, they have figured out a way to that is still good, free, and open for us, but does the best job possible that they understand to comply with the law. So I went ahead and I threw Big Linux up here on a virtual machine here, and we're going to go ahead and have a look at this. Now, I have not gone through this process myself yet. I'm going to walk through their documentation, what they're saying about it, and how this relates to the law. And hopefully by the time we get to the end of this, we'll have a good video which kind of walks us through what's going on here. Now, obviously, I would like a completely free and open, especially since this Big Linux documentation really demonstrates you cannot stop somebody from doing something on a computer without taking some good steps that they've actually told us about. Well, the first thing we want to address every time we do this is this an age attestation or is this an age assurance law? And if you remember this, not a lot of people talk about these laws are bringing up that distinction. And I think it's critically important because like the Texas law is an age assurance, requires an outside company to verify that age verification. Attestation is more what California is doing. And in California's attestation, the parent sets up the system and chooses to decide whether to set that up for the kid or not. And then the operating system at the behest of the parent reports whatever needs to be reported. And then each individual application or tool or whatever else ends up having to comply with that. Now, we don't need any of that nonsense. We just need digital parental neglect laws, but we are living in a world, at least down here in Brazil, where this stuff is actually in effect right now as of March this year. So let's go ahead and have a look at this. The first question I had is this an age assurance or an age verification, or is this an age attestation? And I looked through first at this blog post here. This is from Persona. And the way they say is it's basically an age verification. The problem is that this is a company selling age verification and they're actually lying. Okay, this is the actual law. And very happy that the Brazilian government gave us an English version of it as well. Now, part of this law, and section 4 here, you'll see that this says age assurance. And so let's have a look at what the age assurance mechanisms are. And we'll see this is not a full verification that requires an external company. This is a lot more like California's than it is more like Texas. Where the operating system, if it's apparently going to or likely to be accessed by a minor, shall have an age-appropriate experience. Now, the reason this is still a fundamental problem, of course, is that what to say about a kid who is a little bit more mature, or a kid whose parents are watching them over their back, or just the fact that, you know, in the good old days of us old Luddites, when computers were first coming down, you might have had one computer and one login for that computer. So can you really control this a lot? You know, do we have to all keep our computers perpetually locked from the children like we keep our pew-pews locked from the children? That is utter ridiculousness, okay? We need to have good, sane, rational laws, not these things that are telling us what we have to do. Because what? If I keep my computer unlocked and I go out to kitchen to refill the coffee, and the teenager runs on in and starts doing things. Oh no, a child would have accessed it. Do I have to lock, even in my own home office, do I have to lock my computer to go get a coffee from my own kitchen if there happens to be minors in the house? That is why these laws are ridiculous. But they exist, and as of right now in Brazil, these are in effect. So let's see what they say. So under this age assurance mechanisms, the Article 10 here, providers of the information and technology products or services directed at children or adolescents or likely to be accessed by them shall adopt mechanisms to provide age-appropriate experiences in accordance with the chapter respecting the evolutionary autonomy, capability, and diversity of Brazilian socioeconomic context. Now, again, this here talked a whole lot more about your social media and your online web stuff, because these people are just trying to sell. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Persona the one that had these ties to Palantir that Discord was trying to use at one point in time before their security was also known to be crazy? I think that was the case. I can't remember for sure. But let's look at what the actual law happens to say. The most relevant down here is providers of this, and let's just say terminal operating systems is one of the definitions in the law. I'm like, terminal operating systems. I mean, what if I'm using a GUI operating system? I mean, come on, you know. But all that being said, the terminal operating system users shall take proportional, auditable, and technological security measures to ascertain the age or age ranges of users subject to the principles provided. Now, there were 3 principles in there, and one of those was a estimation of age. One of those was verifying it. Again, how do you verify the age of a minor in society? It's not like they're all running around with driver's licenses, unless you're forcing everybody to have the same type of school ID, for example, we have as government IDs. And wouldn't the state just love that? I should shut up before I give them ideas. So number 2 is the most relevant to Big Linux here. Allow parents or legal guardians to configure voluntary parental supervision mechanisms and to actively supervise the access of children and adolescents. So that really is what they're getting at. Now, I flipped through a lot of the rest of this just to kind of read and understand it, and we're not going to go into a whole lot more other than just say this accounts for parental use, parental monitoring, and things like that. Now, what we have here, though, in the system, I'm just going to make sure the desktop doesn't go to sleep on me, lest it doesn't wake back up. And my browser here is actually on my host operating system, not my guest. But what we actually have here, Big Linux actually releases this Big Linux Parental Controls tool, which is pre-installed on this Big Linux GNOME that I have installed here. And they give us an overview and talk about how the various steps of this complies with, this is the Brazilian law is the ECA Digital. This is the law 15.211/2025, because it was signed in 2025 and it goes into effect March 16th, 2026, which means it has been in actual effect for a while. So what they're doing here is they're explaining in this documentation, this is their auditable trail, about how Big Linux Parental Controls actually complies. So first, it starts with the downloading of the ISO. And this is a thing that a lot of these bills are blind on, that Big Linux properly picks up on. You know, you take a standard computer, you know, who's to say that the kid isn't just going to take that computer and do the same thing I do, take it home, and before you play around on Windows, you just wipe the thing and install Linux on it. You know, I mean, I don't do that. I'm not that reckless. I make sure everything works before I install Linux on it. So, you know, I don't have to explain why it has Linux Mint when I'm trying to take it back on a warranty claim, you know. But who downloads the ISO? The person is technically proficient. They choose to install this on a machine that will be used by a child, just as they would have installed any other of hundreds of other distros, a BSD variant, a Windows version, or any other operating system. The live environment is for testing and installation. It's not a child's desktop. So that's the big first thing here. Okay, well, what do you download one of these live ISOs? Our Linux distribution is going to stop distributing live ISOs to account for this. I mean, come on, do these politicians know what a live ISO is? If they don't, they shouldn't be making laws about this kind of stuff, you know? It's like, you know, if you don't know what that word is, little Johnny, should you be using it? No. Well, politician, if you don't know what a live ISO is, maybe you shouldn't be writing laws that regulate it. There's a thought. But anyway, the adult who configures a computer, buys or assembles a computer, sets a BIOS password, and disables USB boot. That is, by the way, critical. You cannot have a system that does this. Now, does this mean that Windows, all the big, Microsoft is going to lean on all the companies to make sure that BIOS systems can no longer boot by USBs and lock the BIOS out? Let's not give Microsoft any ideas here, but that kind of is what is in play here. So at the first system boot and the system configuration, you install drivers and do the initial setup. The adult is the responsible party, not the OS vendor. So he's saying that we, as the OS vendor at Big Linux, are not responsible for this part. You, as the adult, chose to do this to your computer. So Big Linux welcome screen prompts, would you like to create a supervised account? Now, this version here did not give me a welcome screen at all. That could very well be because this is a community build. Big Linux, I believe, is only available in Plasma officially. The community builds, I guess, don't have that. But if I were to build this community build and want to use it, it is under the parental controls. So you have to go in, you have to authenticate first. So we'll enter our super secret password that's definitely not 123. So you have no supervised users yet. So the supervised users are the minor accounts. So here's some help and support, emotional support, 24-hour, SuperNet. I guess these are relevant to Brazil, I guess. And then they talk about the legal frameworks here, how this has to work. They talk about the LGBT and Brazil. They talk about GDPR, UK's Children Code, and UK Digital Services Act. Now, since Big Linux has to specifically comply with Brazilian law, all of their basic documentation is relevant to this. So what they're saying is when you boot up parental controls, this is what the adult does. You authenticate as the administrator, which we've already done. We've not yet created the supervised account. And we have not yet declared the child's age range. So these are the age ranges. Now, you will notice these differ slightly from those here in the United States, in that United States adds another one. I think it's from like 0 to 8. And then you have an 8 to 12, then a 13 to 15, then a 16, 17, then an 18 plus. Okay. Now, they say this is not self-declaration by the child. The adult is responsible for the computer who declares the age of the minor who will use it, which satisfies Article 12. So let's go back, not persona. Let's get rid of persona. That would be Article 12. Let's find Article 12. That is this one here. Allows the parents to configure voluntary parental supervision mechanisms and to actively supervise the access to the children and adolescents in applications. So what they're saying is that looking at the various components here of Article 12, they're saying that this complies with Article 12 because, well, an outside company did not verify the age of the child, the parent did. And once the parent verifies this, like the parent puts it in for their children, the government needs to stay out of that relationship, all right? Outside of course, if they happen to add those parental digital rights, digital parental neglect that I talk about. Now, optionally, you can enable app restrictions. So as the parent, you can block package managers and SSH. You can turn on certain web filters to block certain things. You can do screen time limits, and you can actively monitor, which is only ever local and nothing ever leaves the device. Now, what the child or teenager sees, their unlimited account is a normal desktop. They cannot install software or access restricted apps. Web filter is active, so it blocks out dangerous content. Hopefully the DNS is working. You can do session time, and there is a system tray monitor that shows this is active because Article 17 requires information to the minor about it. Let's read Article 17. So, Providers of information and technology services directed to the child or likely shall provide accessible, easy-use settings and tools that support parental supervision, considering the available technology, provide an easily accessible location of information, display a clear and visible notice when parental supervision tools are in effect, and offer functionalities that allow for limitations and monitoring. So part of the portions here is that you have to alert the child they are being monitored. And that is what they are saying that this will do with the notification in the app. Now, under data privacy, now this is good because there is a lot in the bill. I didn't highlight specific parts. I don't remember exact specific parts, but there are a lot of things in here that deal with being as private as you can. Let's see if I highlighted a couple of them anyway. Let's see. There is a lot in the bill that talks, I didn't grab any specifically. There's a lot in the bill that talks about being as private as possible. So they're saying this complies with all of the data and privacy from this. Actually, they're saying that's Article 14 and 18. Let me see. Articles 14 and 18. 14. Information, products, and services aimed at children that's likely access by them. Adopt technical organizational measures to ensure the receipt of the information. Let's see. And maybe I'm on the wrong law here. 18. I did read a number in here about privacy. Yeah, here you go. View, configure, manage account, and privacy options of children. Restrict purchases. Identify profiles. There is a lot about everything being as private as possible. So all the data stays on the device. There's no cloud, no telemetry. The parent can view activity, export data, and delete all of it. Activity records are auto-deleted after 30 days, and dbus age signal available for other apps on the device is local only. So that is the signal that is sent out to tell other applications and other things. They're using that dbus that has been used to talk about the age profile. So that is kind of what it looks like. So with that, let's go ahead. Actually, here's the dbus interface. So it returns the age range. So I don't know if you're using this in the United States. Let's say you're using this in like California. Would this have an error if you're in that first range or not? I don't know. That I don't know. Let's go ahead and add a supervised account. So let's go ahead and we'll call him Tommy because, you know, he's good at pinball and such. We'll give him a super secret password that's definitely not 123. And then here we will set him as an age range. So there's a child, there's an adolescent. Let's say Tommy's an adolescent, 13 to 15. And then we'll go ahead and create. I have to authenticate myself again. So it's creating the user Tommy, who's really good at pinball. And user Tommy is created. So looking at user Tommy, I can set the age. I can actually change it here. So let's say we're a little bit before Tommy's 16th birthday. I can go ahead and change that if I want to. Here is the activity data. We can delete all of the data. Here's exported data. There's probably nothing to export, so let's not do that right now. Here is manage allowed apps. So here is all of the applications presently installed on the computer. Ooh, Discord. Ew, my child is not allowed on Discord. Big Blocks, apostrophe, Kvuntum Manager. Yeah, we'll let him do that. Add or remove web apps. No. Let's see. Keep an eye on system resources. No. Jitsi Meet. No. It's kind of cool that that's pre-installed though. Look at that. And let's see. Let's not worry about any of the management stuff. Anything else? No on the WhatsApp. Let's say no on the Steam. I know I'm a bad parent apparently. Ew, HP. Let's get rid of that. No on that. No on Telegram. Drive. Sure. All right, that's good enough. You can see that you can go through and it will have pretty much everything there that I can choose to reject or not reject. Okay, so I hit apply. Let me go back and click that again. I want to make sure. Yep, so that worked. All right, so here's web filters. So you can choose your DNS, so I can enable the web filters. So here's clean family browser, blocks adult content, gambling, phishing websites. Then we have OpenDNS Family Shield by Cisco, automatically blocks adult content on all devices, no counter configuration. There's Cloudflare for families, blocks malware and adult content. And then you can do your own custom DNS server. If you are doing your own DNS filtering, you can go ahead and do that. So that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and use the clean browsing filter. We'll apply that one. And then we'll back up. And then screen time, set limits. So I can do a whole schedule here. Okay, so that's like an 8 a.m. to a 10 p.m. range. I can also set a daily limit. Let's set a daily limit of 2 hours per day on this devil machine. All right. I do wish I had a little bit more feedback. Yeah, see, it didn't actually save or apply that. I wanted to hit apply, but it didn't seem to apply that. Let me check that again. See, for some reason, it's not applying that. Let me see if it's applied the web filters. It did apply the web filters. I'm not seeing it applying the minutes per day. So that's interesting there. Yeah, it's not, the daily limits is not working for whatever reason. Then here is activities. Here's sessions of the day. I can remove supervision, keep the account, but remove parental controls, or I can delete the user. Poor Tommy could lose his computer privileges. All right, let's go ahead and now that that is in there, let's go ahead and log out of this system, and let's log in under Tommy. So let's log out, log out. There we go. There's Tommy. Enters super secret password. It's definitely not 123. All right. So Tommy is now here. I'm going to see what's going on up here. The system's up to date. Oh, I can't access the, can't access that. Nothing there. What I'm not seeing is I'm not seeing that notification bar that we are being monitored. Let's go ahead and try and open up one of the restricted applications. Oh, did they just not show up? Let's try typing Steam. So it looks like when you restrict an application, it doesn't even show up on the system. I think we did WhatsApp as well. Can't seem to find WhatsApp. It's still searching. Not sure why. Let's try that again. Yeah, so WhatsApp should be installed. We also had Jitsi installed. Once again, all of these applications are not, they're not on the system. So let's go ahead and play a quick game of solitaire here. And then we're not going to play the whole game. We're just going to do a little bit of solitaire. And we're going to see if, oop, I missed that one too, didn't I? Once we do that, we're going to go ahead and see what that monitoring looks like. Oh, there's weird noises. That's the solitaire game actually playing weird noises. Okay. Okay, so there you go. We have played our solitaire. We still don't have any notification that we are being monitored. So there's nothing up in here. There's nothing anywhere that shows we're being monitored. So I don't know if that's a bug in their system or what. Let's go ahead though, and we will log out of Tommy, and then we'll go ahead and get logged back into Big Linux. Wait, am I restricted? 6 minutes left. Okay, that's weird. I did not have any form of failure to unlock that. That's definitely weird. So something is wrong with Big Linux. Let's just go ahead and reboot the system, and that should hopefully That should actually hopefully reset that login counter. Not sure why that's happening, but let's go ahead and reboot and we'll see what's going on from here. All right, now we got back in. There you go. All right, so we'll go ahead and launch our parental controls again. Let's authenticate ourselves in. And then let's have a look at Tommy. So you can see here that we had just a few minutes over here. It looks like it doesn't tell me immediately right here what I actually did. You can see I had 2 minutes of play there. And let's have a look at that JSON file. So it looks like all that is in that JSON file, there's the minutes in the last 30 days that we've done anything. Did a West session type Wayland just for 2 minutes. And it does not actually record any information about what I did. All that information is that it gives me inside of there is information about screen time. It doesn't give us any information about the applications being used or anything else like that. So the question is if this satisfies all of the laws, are we making too much of a big deal about it? Or is it still a big deal because, yeah, maybe we should still have no absolute restrictions? Maybe we just have a society that suggests that maybe every device should have the easy ability to add some form of parental control, which is something I'm an advocate for anyway. Very simply because I know I can do a much better job blocking bad things off of my kid's device if they're using Graphene OS than I can if they're using stock Android. And this is much the same way. You know, these types of parental tools have been available on distributions, for example, like Elementary OS. As much as I've been a critic of that particular distro, their parental controls have always been top notch, and they're not a whole lot different than this, other than these will actually have that age range set, which will pass that API of simply the age range with no other data through the dbus platform to satisfy the law. But I can't complain too much about how this is implemented. If this satisfies the crazy laws coming down, fine. But if they look at this and go, well, there's no independent verification of that kid's age, or you have to do a better job, or you have to track a lot more information, well, we might start having a problem. But as far as this is concerned, Big Linux, based on their documentation, they're doing their best effort to comply with a crazy dystopian law that is inside of the country that they are now bound to follow. And because of that, they have put together this system. And if this system keeps Big Linux functioning in Brazil, then this is actually a really good thing. So I don't know. There's my take. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Does this satisfy the law or does it not? I don't know. The time will only tell. And at the very least, we can say they did something to keep on operating without the threat of being shut down. So with that, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments down below.